Hi and welcome to my Black Library book review, and today we're reviewing Fire Warrior from Spurrier. Fire Warrior was based on the PlayStation 2 game, and I believe it's still available for PC if you're interested to play it, but it's an early 2000 game. So, yeah, expectation needs to be limited here. So Fire Warriors is basically a book where we follow a Fire Warrior through his first firefight from being a novice to becoming a veteran. The story goes over a 24 hours time period and is pretty interesting because that fire warrior is going to fight against the guardsmen, the navy, and space marine and more, which is really interesting and pretty full for a small book that is not costing a lot. So here's a synopsis from Black Library. So the Tau Empire is trying to unite everybody under the same banner. And at one point, one of their elite class, like they say, crash on a planet, and some fire warriors are sent to save him. Lacais, which is the hero of the book, will do everything that he can to actually save that elite class, but he will find out that in the grim dark, it is way more dangerous than a training ground. And that's pretty much the synopsis from Black Library. Here's my synopsis. So Lacais is a novice fire warrior. He just became a fire warrior not too long ago. But he's the son of a general from the Tau army that died not too long ago. So he got big shoes to fill. One day he's sent on his first firefight mission until he learns that this mission is not exactly what he expected. And from there, he starts to understand what it means to be part of the greater good or part of the machine. And to a point where he feels like a broken cog within the machine. And does a broken cog can fit within the machine? Is it still usable? Or does he have to be discarded? And that's pretty much my synopsis. It's not that I don't like the Black Library synopsis of the story, but it doesn't represent well the magic of this book. Spurrier, if you know about him, actually write stories about John Constantine. And John Constantine is basically a detective that goes against demons and angels and stuff like that. It's really interesting. And you see in this book why Simmons is actually doing a beautiful job. And without spoiling, I think you can make the connection between his writing and what I'm talking about. Interestingly, in this book, we follow Lacais, that fire warrior, for about 80%, 90% of the book. We got really small glimpse of other peoples within the book. So let's say we're reading the first chapter. Like I say, 80% is about Lacais. And randomly, we got random small paragraph, few lines, maybe 5 to 10 lines, where we perceive that war or that battle through the eyes of somebody else. Can be a guardsman, can be another Tau, and we feel the mortality through war and the scars that it brings. How in a moment you can be happy and everything's fine, to straight black and not knowing what happened to you, and this is it, to the other way, being in a stressful situation, hoping to survive, to being taken down like a dog. So it is really, really interesting, and that's what Simmons does so well in this, because we see how a rookie gets his scar from battles over battles, and how his mind can lose track of what is reality and what is actually a good thing and not a good thing, how the moral is being tested, how somebody will create stories in their mind to justify their action, to kind of try to cope with what they're doing. And it represents a lot of, for people that went into the army, you'll get that weird inner thinking type of thing you won't say to your comrades or somebody else, but really inner thoughts. So it's really, really interesting. And we see the PTSD that is caused by war. So even though we're talking about a Tao, we can actually, how can I say it? Not have compassion, but really understand what he's going through. There's a bit of critic about this book. Some people says that Simmons is using too much simple words, and others are saying that he used too much synonyms and metaphor. So I'll explain what is the problem here. It's because the first part of the book we're covering the psyche of Lacais, of that fireward. So it feels a bit like a teenager book for the first half, because we're so much in his mind. There's confusion, and all of a sudden he believes he's some kind of god of killing, and all of the other second he's nearly crying out his head, wondering what happened to his friend. So we got the confusion back and forth, and some people will see that as really a teenager behavior. But you have to understand that we got basically a teenager, a young soldier that's being sent into war, and all of a sudden, the greater good, the thing that is supposed to be pure and perfect, it's really kind of bloody. So your old belief system, the old society that you're based on, all of a sudden doesn't feel so great. And from that half and more of this book, well, the other half, not more, but the other half, Simmons is trying to really drill in some information about the surrounding and the behavior and the understanding of the characters, but sometimes to a bit too much. So if we're talking about a street in the middle of a city, he'll start saying, well, that road in the middle of the city looks like a river in the middle of a jungle, like a vine in the middle of a forest, like a sand dune in the middle of a desert. So he keeps dragging out 4, 5, 6 metaphor for one explanation. So even if I try to play the devil's advocate and say, well, he's really trying to drill us to the idea of this is important, but sometimes it doesn't fit. So this kind of influenced a bit of my score. Does it really bothers that much? Yes and no. Depends how much of a reader you are, and depends how much you like really descriptive sceneries. If you don't mind, you'll be fine. You'll read it like water. If you're somebody that prefers really simple reading, the first half is going to be amazing, the second half is going to be worse. And for people that loves it really complicated and really deep words, well, the first half is going to be boring, but the second half is going to be amazing. So you get that weird feeling all over. So that's what the problem with the polarized critics about this book in the negative way. In a good way, we really follow the psyche of a soldier. We see the effect of PTSD. I don't want to spoil. So what I'll do, I'll give you my score, I'll take a pause, and I'll do a spoiler section, because there's something really important for me. For people that knows about this or are not planning to read this book, I need to talk about this. Just because this book was released in the early days of 2000, and pretty much at the same time, the Tao was released a bit earlier, and we got a video game, etc. So I believe Games Workshop had a plan with this, not this book, but with the Tao. And we can see inside this book how they changed their mind over time to maybe please more the fans, or maybe just because they got creative, or maybe I think they want us to forget about this book, because I believe they're planning something else. So we'll see that in the spoiler section. So I give it a 7.8 out of 10. The only reason is just because of that inconsistent writing from the first half and the second half being a bit more psyche related, really more simple words for the first half, and then for the second half we're really getting that heavy metaphor description of the scenery, where you feel there's like 100 pages of this book that could have been removed easily. So yeah, the way it was written, that's another reason why my score is still high, is because it's really action-packed. It is non-stop fighting, surviving, seeing the war through the eyes of somebody else, and it moves and moves fast. So this is really fun. So it's a book that reads really fast, a Around the middle part, maybe just a bit before, you'll get maybe a paragraph where everything slow down. But for all the other paragraphs, it just speed up from the beginning to the end. It's just exponential. It just goes faster and faster, and everything is just explosion, shooting. So it's fun. So we got the Xenos perception in the guardsman fight against the Empire, and more. So yeah, so I hope you guys will take a look at least at this book. Check it on Black Library. If you check on maybe eBay, check in the old secondhand bookstore, you'll find these for like $4, $5. Great read, great book, really interesting. Now, for the spoiler section, and this is where it's interesting. So for those that wants to read this book first, get out. You got 5 seconds top. And for all the others, get ready because we're diving in. So Fire Warriors brings something really interesting. Since we're in the spoiler, I'm going to steal the whole section, so this was your last chance there. By mid-time of this book, lackeys that Fire Warrior will attack a ship, a Navy ship from the Empire. And while they're fighting to find the On, the elite class, there's going to be an attack from not Khorne, but Chaos. So warps are going to open all over the ship. There's one of the commander that is worshipping Chaos, and his whole plan was actually to create a war between the Tau and the human, break that negotiation, that truce that they had in between, to get as much blood as possible to thin the warp or the veil between the warp and reality to release a demon lord. But lackeys, from the first half of the book, he's kind of losing his mind. He believes his friends are dead, he sees a lot of people dying, and all of a sudden he's trying to justify that just because he's good at it. And he keeps thinking about his father and being a great general and being really like, how can I say that? Losing track of who he is and losing his belief in the system. And all of a sudden we're starting to get those little messages that pops into his mind, like thoughts that are coming from the chaos. At the beginning, it made me think about Damocles with Shadow Sun when she was getting those messages through the radio. But here, he gets it straight into his mind, like if it's his own thinking. And the more it goes into that ship with the chaos being attacking, he completely loses it. He's nearly corrupted. Nearly corrupted. By the time he lands on the planet and escapes that ship, and he starts diving in the Temple of Chaos, we get to a point where he's nearly again completely corrupted. And by getting closer to On, he says himself that he feels like something filling up his mouth, his nose, his eyes. And all of a sudden, his mind becomes completely clear. And this comes and explains why we got some people that says that the On maybe release some kind of pheromones that influence the Tau. And it's pretty interesting because in that period of time, a demon lord is actually probing psychically On to know if he's corruptible. And they're not. They don't have any connection to the warp. They don't have any psychic powers. They got nothing. They're just full of faith in the greater good. That's it. That's the only thing they have. So maybe it's related to their crystal and their foreign, we're not sure. But this book makes it really specific that the Han release some type of smell. And the closer lackeys is getting to him, the clearer his mind becomes. But at one point, the Han is killed. And as soon as the Han is killed, the corruption comes back. And it's not just coming back. We literally got a Fire Warriors that loses his mind and start yelling blood for the blood god. For all the internet that says Taus cannot be corrupted, well, this book says otherwise. So a lot of people say it's not Canaan, some people say it's Canaan. So why this is interesting to see a Fire Warrior start yelling out loud blood for the blood god and go into a murder spree. Um, it's because I believe this was the first intention from Games Workshop when they created Tau, to make them more, how can I say that, more like ants, and being able to resist corruption as long they're around their queen, Dion. And why this is even more important is because with Farsight, there is no on with Farsight. And Farsight is really, really close to the Blood God of Chaos to a certain degree. Not lore wise, but in his action. He's more in the melee type of thing, he's more close and personal. When he fights, there is no patient hunter, they're really going all in. So knowing that Lacais got that influence, now we're wondering, did really Games Workshop change their mind and decided to make Farsight the good guy of the Tau? Because a lot of people says Farsight is actually the good guy here, and the Tau, the On, are the corrupted and bad people. Now I'm starting to believe that maybe Games Workshop is planning to do something with Farsight in the future. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Omen being released soon. Maybe the influence of Chaos will come back. We'll see. We'll never know. But yeah, so that for me was really important, because if this is true in Canaan, the Tau are corrupted, can be corrupted easily. Only not the On. And we know that Farsight at one point got attacked into one of the ship, and that completely boggled his mind. But now we're thinking about it, we realize, did Farsight really survive all of this? So anyways, this was my little side note with the spoilers. This makes it really, really interesting for a book. Starting from fighting the guardsmen, going to the Navy, fighting the Ultramarines, not the Ultramarines, but the Space Marines, and finishing fighting Chaos. And we're not just talking about Khorne. He's fighting the Plague Marines, Khorne, Slaanesh, Siege. Am I pronouncing that right? Anyways, he's fighting everybody. So it's a great book. Give it a try and let me know what you think. So anyways, on this, I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you guys around for my next book review.